Getting rid of the tanker ban on British Columbia's north coast, a catastrophic danger?
There is no chance in God's green earth that there's ever going to be an oil tanker up the BC north coast.
Or the country's best chance at economic survival?
We need to override the discriminatory anti-Canada ban on shipping Canadian energy overseas.
The reality is a lot more complicated than the sound bites, and some argue there's a middle ground, a way to control risk and make cash.
This is not just a simple yes or no gate going down.
It happens every day, sometimes twice. Massive oil tankers move Canadian crude from Burnaby, British Columbia to international markets. Traffic like this is not allowed here. BC's pristine northern coastline is protected by what's known as the tanker ban.
The Prime Minister and Alberta's Premier signed a new agreement.
Some worry that protection could go away now that Ottawa and Alberta have signed a deal that might mean a new oil pipeline to BC. If that happens, tankers would be needed to ship the oil. The Memorandum of Understanding opens that door, saying if an Alberta pipeline is ultimately approved, Canada confirms it will enable the export of bitumen from a strategic deep-water port to Asian markets, setting up a potential confrontation with coastal First Nations that don't want tankers.
It is extremely dangerous, extremely risky. We need to do everything we can to keep the crude oil out of those areas.
Here's the thing. There's not just one tanker ban. There's actually two different sets of restrictions. And just because tankers aren't allowed doesn't mean vessels, some carrying dangerous goods, aren't navigating those waters all the time. And to make it even more confusing, some of what politicians are saying on both sides isn't true.
This is a sacred coast.
To help explain it all, we reached out to Joe Spears. He studies, teaches, and consults on marine law.
People are just too emotional, going to the extremes?
Well, we've got a lot of people talking about marine risk that have no background in marine risk.
This is the area we're talking about, between the northern tip of Vancouver Island and Alaska. There are two deep-water ports, Kitimat and Prince Rupert. To get to them, vessels have to navigate either the Dixon Entrance or the Hecate Strait. This line here is called the Voluntary Exclusion Zone. Oil tankers going back and forth between Alaska and refineries in the United States stay west, about 100 kilometers off Haida Gwaii and 40 kilometers from Vancouver Island. Negotiations started all the way back in the 1970s, led by former Federal Environment Minister David Anderson.
Really basically arguing against the dangers to the BC shore of oil spills, aren't you?
Oh, this is very true indeed. That's the basic guts of our case.
The Voluntary Exclusion Zone was officially established in 1985 and remains in place to this day.
So that if a tanker is broken down and is drifting, there's enough time to get some tugs out to stop it.
In 2019, the Trudeau government went further, passing the Tanker Moratorium Act. It means inside this line, tankers carrying more than 12,500 metric tons of oil can't stop.
So the Tanker Moratorium Act basically doesn't allow tankers to anchor or discharge or load cargo in this area that you've got circled here in red, essentially.
So, those big oil tankers are blocked from Canada's northwest coast on two fronts. The 2019 moratorium says they can't come into port, and the 1985 exclusion zone says the American ones need to pass 100 kilometers to the west. No large oil tankers from any country navigate this part of the coast. That's what some politicians are getting wrong.
As we speak, the U.S. crude oil tanker California is traveling from Tacoma to Alaska along that west coast. Why are the Liberals keeping in a law that prevents Canada from exporting our oil while U.S. tankers travel through the exact same place?
So apparently it's safe when the Americans transport oil through those same waters, but not when Canadians do it.
So when politicians say there are already tankers going through to Alaska, that's only true on the outside.
Correct.
No other tankers are allowed through the BC Inside Passage.
However, oil does move closer to the coast on smaller vessels. That's because many coastal communities need fuel for power. The federal government says in 2025, there were approximately 180 fuel barges transiting in or out of northern British Columbia.
They're essentially barges. They go up through these inside waters because it's quite rough off here in the wintertime especially.
Prince Rupert traffic, Nathan East Stewart, good morning. We have run aground here.
It can be dangerous. Back in 2016, an American tug and fuel barge was navigating near Bella Bella when it hit ground. Thankfully, the barge was empty, but the tug sank.
Using their small boats, members of the nearby Halsek Nation tried to push the enormous vessels in a futile attempt to save the shoreline.
Tens of thousands of liters of fuel and lubricant from the tug spilled into the ocean. People who don't want to see tankers here saw that as a warning.
It's just unfathomable to think they would allow tankers carrying far more harmful petroleum products.
In between Haida Gwaii and the northwest coast of British Columbia is the most dangerous body of water in Canada.
But supporters of the tanker ban aren't getting all their facts right either. Take Green Party leader Elizabeth May describing the Hecate Strait.
As I mentioned, not just the most dangerous body of water in Canada, the fourth most dangerous body of water on the planet.
We wanted to fact check that. The only place we could find reference to the quote is in this 1999 Marine Weather Hazards Manual from Environment Canada. It reads, "It has been said that the Hecate Strait is the fourth most dangerous body of water in the world." We asked Environment Canada for the source of that quote. It directed us to Transport Canada. Officials there didn't know the source and couldn't confirm it.
The reality is, huge vessels do navigate both the Hecate Strait and the Dixon Entrance all the time. There are cruise ships in the summer. From Prince Rupert, container ships move grain, logs, even chemicals. From Kitimat, liquefied natural gas is exported on tankers to Asia.
What is the difference between the vessels that are moving now and oil tankers?
There's really none. I mean, other than that they're carrying a cargo that's perceived to be a pollutant, but there's lots of dangerous goods, other kinds of chemicals.
But for many, that cargo, crude oil, changes any assessment of risk.
An oil tanker will spill into the marine environment, polluting everything it touches.
Eugene Kung is an environmental lawyer.
When an LNG tanker spills, of course it's still a disaster in terms of the atmosphere and emissions, but in terms of pollution in the ocean, it's much less impactful from a crude oil spill.
Especially, he says, the kind of crude coming from Alberta. In order to move thick bitumen through pipelines, companies dilute it with chemicals.
So we have this huge mystery sludge mixture coming through. We know that it's more likely going to sink and be impossible to clean up. We still cannot forget the Exxon Valdez spill, which still has oil on the shores of Alaska.
Among their questions will be why the Exxon Valdez was so far off course.
That spill, 36 years ago, looms over today's tanker debate. Hundreds of thousands of barrels of Alaska crude gushing into remote Prince William Sound. Lasting devastation no one wants to see repeated. Much has changed since then. Tankers are double-hulled, an extra layer of protection against spills. There's improved navigation, including tugs and pilots, and tougher rules. Still, Kung says, not worth the risk.
But that would be like saying that, because my car has ABS brakes, that I don't have to wear a seatbelt anymore. Like, the magnitude of risk that we're talking about, which is likelihood times impact. When you have a huge impact like A huge oil tanker spilling on a pristine ecosystem, that's a really big problem.
And we need to sort of look at this in a more logical way of looking at risk.
Joe Spears says people should be studying and debating that risk right now.
Canada's in the driver's seat on this, and so are the First Nations. Let's look at it in a systematic way versus restricting potentially our economic future.
It may be, when all the analysis is done, when the economics are weighed against the dangers, coastal nations, Canadians, will ultimately say no, keep the crude oil away. But it is tough to make any informed decision in a sea of misleading sound bites.